Here's a question that might surprise you. If the United States produces more oil than any other nation on Earth, why is its government so fixated on securing oil from other countries? This isn't just about energy independence or geopolitical strategy. It's about something far more complex that touches economics, history, and the very chemistry of crude oil itself. When President Trump speaks about having a presence in Venezuela as it pertains to oil, he's referring to a sophisticated global puzzle that most people don't fully understand. The answer lies hidden beneath our feet, in the composition of the oil itself and in refineries built decades ago along America's Gulf Coast. To grasp why the world's leading oil producer still needs foreign crude, we need to journey through the science of petroleum, the economics of refining, and the tumultuous political relationship between Washington and Caracas that has shaped energy markets for over a century. Not all black gold shines the same. Imagine walking into an artisan chocolate shop where you encounter countless varieties: dark milk, white, single origin, blended each with distinct flavors, textures, and purposes. Crude oil operates on remarkably similar principles, though most people assume it's all essentially the same sticky black substance. The petroleum industry recognizes over 160 distinct varieties of crude oil, each classified by density, sulfur content, and viscosity into categories ranging from light sweet to heavy sour. These classifications aren't merely academic, they determine everything from extraction costs to final product applications and market prices. Light sweet crude flows easily and contains minimal sulfur, making it simpler to refine into gasoline, diesel, and jet fuel. Heavy sour crude, by contrast, is thick, sulfur-laden, and requires significantly more complex processing. But it's essential for producing asphalt, bunker fuel for ships, industrial lubricants, and even cosmetic ingredients like the emollients in your lip balm. America's energy mismatch. In 2025, the United States achieved a remarkable milestone, producing 13.4 million barrels of oil daily, yet simultaneously importing nearly 2 million barrels from foreign sources. This apparent contradiction baffles many observers who reasonably ask why America doesn't simply consume what it produces. The answer reveals a fascinating industrial legacy that stretches back nearly a century and involves billions of dollars in infrastructure that can't easily adapt to changing circumstances. Approximately 80% of American oil production consists of light sweet crude, thanks to the revolutionary shale boom that transformed domestic energy markets. However, the vast majority of American refineries, particularly the massive facilities dotting the Gulf Coast from Texas to Louisiana, were engineered and constructed to process heavy sour crude. These refineries represent decades of investment and cannot be retrofitted without extraordinary expense, creating a fundamental mismatch between what America produces and what its infrastructure can efficiently process. The shale revolution that changed everything, the early 2000s, witnessed a seismic transformation in American energy production that rivals any industrial revolution in history. Advances in hydraulic fracturing and horizontal drilling suddenly made it economically viable to extract light crude oil, trapped within shale rock formations that had been inaccessible for millions of years. Production skyrocketed as companies tapped vast reserves in places like North Dakota's Bakken Formation and Texas's Permian Basin, fundamentally altering global oil markets and America's position within them. This technological breakthrough created unprecedented abundance but also intensified the refining mismatch. Retrofitting a refinery costs hundreds of millions of dollars and can take years to complete, making such investments economically questionable. Instead, American producers discovered a more profitable strategy: export their premium light crude at higher prices while importing cheaper heavy crude that their refineries were designed to handle. This arbitrage makes perfect economic sense, turning America's apparent dependency into a sophisticated global trading strategy. Venezuela's heavy crude in historical bonds. When we examine the world's top 10 nations by proven oil reserves, a striking pattern emerges. Venezuela, Iran, and Russia, 3 countries currently facing American sanctions, collectively hold massive quantities of heavy crude that American refineries desperately need. Venezuela alone possesses the planet's largest known reserves at 303 billion barrels, dwarfing even Saudi Arabia's deposits. For most of the 20th century, Venezuela and the United States enjoyed a remarkably symbiotic relationship built entirely around this heavy crude. American petroleum companies literally helped build Venezuela's oil industry after massive deposits were discovered in the early 1900s. Unlike other Latin American nations that nationalized their resources amid anti-American sentiment, Venezuela maintained cooperative relations with Washington even through the 1976 nationalization. The arrangement worked brilliantly. American refineries were specifically designed to process Venezuelan heavy crude, creating mutual dependency that seemed economically unbreakable and politically beneficial to both nations for generations. The Chavez Revolution and souring relations. Everything changed when Hugo Chavez swept to power in 1918, bringing socialist policies and nationalist rhetoric that fundamentally altered Venezuela's approach to its petroleum wealth. Chavez asserted unprecedented state control over oil operations, imposed stringent conditions on foreign companies, and redirected oil revenues toward social programs rather than infrastructure maintenance. American oil executives and Washington policymakers watched with growing alarm as their privileged access to Venezuelan crude began eroding. After Chávez's death in 2013, his successor Nicolas Maduro continued and even intensified these policies, leading to escalating tensions. A 2019 World Bank tribunal ordered Venezuela to compensate American oil companies for seized assets, but Maduro's government refused payment. This is precisely what President Trump references when claiming Venezuela stole American oil rights. The relationship deteriorated further through sanctions, counter-sanctions, and ultimately, military confrontation, transforming what was once the cornerstone of hemispheric energy cooperation into one of the most contentious bilateral relationships in the Americas. The new players entered the game. Western sanctions against Venezuela didn't eliminate global demand for its heavy crude, they simply redirected it. Into the vacuum stepped China, Russia, and Iran, eager to secure discounted petroleum and expand their geopolitical influence throughout Latin America. China has become particularly dominant, now purchasing approximately 90% of Venezuelan oil exports and providing crucial financial lifelines through loans and infrastructure investments that come with significant political strings attached. This shift represents exactly what concerns the Trump administration beyond mere oil economics. Having adversarial powers establish deep economic relationships throughout the Western Hemisphere challenges American influence and creates potential security complications. Venezuela has become a case study in how resource sanctions can backfire strategically, strengthening the very rivals they're meant to weaken. The question of who controls Venezuelan oil is therefore simultaneously about energy security, economic competition, and the fundamental architecture of regional power in the 21st century. The long road to recovery, the dramatic military intervention of January 3rd, when American forces detained President Maduro and his wife on drug trafficking charges, marked an unprecedented escalation. President Trump's subsequent promises of massive American investment to rebuild Venezuela's oil sector sound ambitious, but industry analysts remain skeptical about rapid transformation. Decades of underinvestment, mismanagement, and sanctions have left Venezuelan oil infrastructure in catastrophic condition, with some facilities literally requiring reconstruction from the ground up. Despite possessing the world's largest proven reserves, Venezuela currently exports fewer than 1 million barrels daily, a fraction of its historical capacity. Energy consultants estimate a 3 to 4 year timeline before Venezuelan crude returns to international markets in meaningful volumes, assuming political stability and sustained investment. Meanwhile, global energy markets continue evolving with growing renewable energy adoption and climate concerns reshaping demand patterns. The ultimate question becomes whether massive investment in Venezuelan heavy crude infrastructure makes sense in a world potentially transitioning away from fossil fuels. The future of global energy power, the Venezuelan oil saga illustrates that in our interconnected world, energy is never merely about geology or engineering, it's about history, politics, economics, and the complex web of relationships binding nations together. The petroleum industry has generated trillions of dollars over the past century, transforming impoverished nations into wealthy powerhouses overnight and funding both development and conflict across every continent. Understanding why America seeks Venezuelan oil despite leading global production requires grasping these multifaceted dimensions. As we've explored together today, the answer involves the chemistry of different crude varieties, the legacy of 20th century refinery construction, the economics of global arbitrage, and the geopolitical chess game playing out across the Americas. What happens next in Venezuela will shape energy markets, regional politics, and great power competition for decades to come. Thank you for watching the World Documentaries. If you found this exploration enlightening, please subscribe to our channel, give this video a thumbs up, and share your thoughts in the comments below. Do you think American intervention in Venezuela is justified, or does it represent overreach? How should the world balance energy needs with sovereignty and climate concerns? We'd love to hear your perspective and experiences. Join our growing community for more deep dives into the forces shaping our world, from geopolitics to technology, economics to culture. Every week, we bring you documentaries that go beyond headlines to reveal the complex realities behind global events. Share your insights in the comments, and let's continue this conversation together. Until next time, keep questioning, keep learning, and keep exploring the world with us.